What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Outfielder podcast, episode 128, presented by Sensibly Loud Media. I'm your host, J-Mac, a.k.a. Founder Numero Uno, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Pop Fly himself, Founder Numero Dos, Ben.
No, it's like Wii baseball where you have to stand there and swing at the television.
Baseball. Ben. How's it going, my friend?
I'm doing very well this fine evening. How are you doing?
Not too bad. You have to turn on your microphone when you're recording a podcast. I'm leaving that in and not editing out.
That's fine. We're going to blame someone else for this. We're going to say that I was stalling for our number 3 as he had to run to the store to get corn squash or something. Who's on deck?
Ladies and gentlemen, now batting cleanup for the Outfielder podcast, number 3, the Great Sambino.
Good evening, Sam.
Hey, I'd like to blame Jose Canseco for Ben not being able to use mute. He just feels like a good scapegoat today. Is that okay?
I think when in doubt, Canseco it out. I like that.
That guy had so much going on Twitter this week, too. It's so funny that you bring him up because
Wait, really?
Yeah, just having a heyday out there, just throwing just bombs at everybody and anybody that'll listen. At one point, he was talking about watching Barry Bonds clips on YouTube. It was just absolute riot. It was great.
But why? Why would...
He's very strange. He's a very strange person.
That home run he helped go over the fence by hitting it with his noggin might have really left some long-term damage.
It's a Mardi Gras head, that's for sure.
Mardi Gras head.
It's a giant head. Look at it.
Yeah, that's the steroids.
It's definitely the steroids. How are we doing, guys?
Hello. Do we need to start buying our hats in size 8 1/4 now? Is that a thing?
Apparently.
Is that big?
It's pretty good size, right, Ben?
Yeah. Most hats are probably like 6 3/4 to 7 1/2, 7 3/4.
Hat sizes like don't map to reality, so I don't understand them.
Awesome. Mark that for later.
Well, in other places, they just do the circumference of your head in centimeters, and they're like, yeah, I'm a size 55 or whatever it is, because it makes sense. But no, I'm a 7 1/4 in American hat sizes.
What does that even mean?
I don't even know. Yeah, that's very strange. I'm not really sure how that all equates. It's complicated math. It's not math we're getting into today, though, I don't think, right?
I feel like we might need to, but yeah, maybe not today.
Maybe we say that for the offseason. We have like 2 more weeks left of baseball, of a 60.
I honestly didn't realize how much it bothered me until this very moment, so I apologize.
We're just turning over stones every day, aren't we? That's all we do.
Hey, you know what? Someone has to turn over those stones.
That's right. That is correct. Well, lots of crazy things have happened here in just a couple of days, it feels like. From when we last talked, we had a bunch of changes in like the actual playoff brackets and everything. So we'll go over the results of what our predictions were and all that next time, or here in a little bit. And then we'll write down what we're going to have for next time, so we kind of know where we're going to end up with everything. But we're down to 4 teams and things are going nicely. And lots of interesting things that have come up. But one of the things I saw today that I actually don't feel like I'm particularly surprised by, but it seems like it caught you guys off guard, was the White Sox firing Rick Renteria as their manager. Either of you can start. I don't care which, but I was probably not very shocked by this as much as you guys were, though.
So I think for me, it boils down to he was outperforming expectations. Why are you cutting him? And like now that I've read some other headlines, like it kind of makes sense where, you know, as we'll get into here in a minute, they're trying to catch a bigger fish. But at the time that I just read it, it's like, why? He was doing better than where they should have been. You know, why didn't he get an extension? Maybe there was something seedy going on and they're cutting and running. But I don't think it's any of that. I think they're waiting for a bigger fish.
The sad part is you can't put that past baseball in any way, shape, or form. So that's where your mind goes.
None of that.
Renteria, not that special. Just not that special.
Yeah.
And the White Sox, like their window's about to be open. I think they've got a pretty good team. This year was really good. my initial reaction was the same as Ben's, which was, hey, didn't they make the playoffs? Like, what the-
And we're really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So upgrade. Time for an upgrade, seems like.
There are guys that are rebuilding managers, and there are guys that are kind of like win now, like experienced kind of, you plug and play kind of people. And they're in a spot now where you have it's almost like what AJ Hinch dealt with, ironically enough, or Alex Cora, where they walked into a pretty winning situation. You know what I mean? And like in the case of the Astros before AJ Hinch, they had what was that guy's name? Bo Porter as the manager, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it didn't really matter because they were losing like 130 games a season, so it was kind of like, well, I guess that's okay. It's not really, the manager isn't the problem here, kind of thing. And so it's like that young White Sox team is chock full of talent, ready to perform. You want to get someone in there that knows what they're doing, and I just don't see Rick Renteria as one of those managers.
Yeah.
Say his name again?
Rick Renteria, right?
Renteria.
I think that's how I think we just pronounce it a little bit different. Renteria. Now you got me thinking about it too much.
Renteria.
I have no dog in this hunt.
What? In the
Good old Rick.
Okay, go on.
No, so when it comes to who the White Sox will have for their next manager, I mean, you've already mentioned two potential names there with Hinch and Cora. Number one, is there anyone else out there? And number two, what are y'all's heads? Where's your head at with potentially going one of those directions for Chicago?
I mean, earlier today I saw that they were considering talking with Tony La Russa. Isn't that guy like number 2 underneath Manfred or something like that? Like he's like a special exec, right?
Well, I think that was just a kind of like a cushy retirement position because he retired after the 2011 series when the Cards beat the Rangers.
Correct.
So, I mean, he's been out of the league now for 10 years, out of management, rather, for 10 years. So I didn't even know that he had some bigwig exec position.
10 years is a long time to be out of the game. A lot has changed since 10 years ago. 2010?
Yes.
That would not go well, right? With like a young...
That doesn't seem like a real suggestion, right?
No, I don't...
That's very odd. That does not seem like something that is a good idea for all of those reasons and more.
So if not La Russa, we mentioned Cora and Hinch. Rangers talk, or that they're potentially trying to get Girardi, which I want to talk about here in a minute.
No, that's an old blog. I wrote that maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago at this point, and I put it up. I said still applies or something like that. Girardi's with the Phillies, so
we'll bring him to Texas.
That's my fault for bamboozling you a little bit that way.
I am easily bamboozled. It is one of my character flaws. I understand that about myself.
I think Cora is going to end up back in Boston.
I think so too. I really do. They kept majority of the staff, and I heard that Ron Renicky, who is the manager this year, is willing to go back and be the bench coach. I mean, but it's also like I don't know. You got to think about that if you're Alex Cora too, though. Like I understand like the draw and everything, but like the Red Sox stink. You could walk into a winning situation once again. I mean, regardless of whether, if you're back in the game, like you're back in the game and you're going to be managing a team, you're going to be managing a team. That is what it is. Wouldn't you want to go to the best situation that you could?
Well, and that's where I wonder if you would go to like Chicago or something where it'd be more of a failing upwards kind of thing.
That would be incredible. What an incredible manager career.
Like you'd have to pick one of the 8 to 12 teams, who are at the top of the stack this year and then see where the openings are. And with the White Sox, it makes sense. I don't know of any of the other clubs out there, and they could already be happening, but I don't know if the Padres are happy with their situation or Milwaukee's happy with their situation.
Yeah, both those teams seem okay on manager for now, I think, but that's a good point. I don't know. I don't, and I also don't really know who else would be out there. I feel like you don't really fire your manager without knowing generally who you're going to try to go get. And I would not be surprised if it was AJ Hinch, personally.
It's entirely possible. I mean, it doesn't have to be somebody that we really know. There's a lot of smaller name guys out there who are like hitting coaches that get their first gig and you're like, oh shit, he's the hitting coach for the Pirates, and now he's the head coach or the manager of the Rangers, Jeff Bannister.
Beanie Rooster.
Right. So I mean, there could be a lot of names out there that we're just not familiar with. Those I think those are the two big ones, though.
But you don't fire an inexperienced man, or like a manager, to go with less experience if you're the White Sox at this juncture. That would be. I mean, I wouldn't be necessarily so surprised that the White Sox did that, but
well, and that's where, God, I hate that I'm saying this, but I kind of agree with J-Mac on this one, where unless there was something happening, under the table that we don't know about, it makes me think that they have a guy in mind.
They must, and they must know that it's in place, ready to go. That's typically how those work out.
Do y'all think that there's 0% chance Hinch goes back to Houston then? Because I thought that, kind of like what J-Mac insinuated earlier, that Cora's going to Boston and Hinch is going to, Hinch is going back to Houston.
I think the only way that AJ Hinch gets back in this game somehow as a manager would to not be in Houston. I don't think that would really go well. I think the PR hit would be a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
So while I agree with that sentiment, you already have dealt with, in the last 3 years, how many nightmare scenarios worth of PR hits?
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
true.
Seemingly okay. Like,
I mean, that's where I am as a Red Sox fan.
We live in a world where now nothing matters. None of
it matters at all. It's terrible. No, that's a very good point. And I mean, if you can withstand that, but I don't know why you would. I guess I'm not really. Again, it's like, what are the Astros really going to go forward with Dusty Baker after this? Like, no way, right? That was never meant to be a long-term hire, which, by the way, I meant to tell you guys last show. I tried to find some good sound clips of Dusty Baker just to, so we could listen to some of these old man rants that he does during these press conferences. Almost non-existent. Couldn't find them anywhere.
Really?
Very strange.
To cover up. Release the documents.
Release them. I don't like it at all, though. Couldn't find it anywhere. Like a lot of articles with quotes, but no actual audio clips.
None of the garbage bookends in between the quotes.
Right. Just a lot. Yeah, which is probably intentional in some ways. I would.
Oh, totally.
Very reminiscent of pre-radio baseball. Good
right.
1916 level game going on right there.
So it's interesting. I'm not really sure what the White Sox do in that case. I really do think it's going to be AJ Hinch. That's just my gut feeling. I think that he's going to look for a way back in this game. And I think that we've talked about this. It's the same exact thing we've talked about for weeks on end with Alex Cora. I mean, it's a perfect opportunity for it to just kind of go under the radar and no one notice. But I don't think that Houston would be it. I don't know what Houston does after this. I haven't really honestly thought much about it, but I don't know what they do. I feel like Dusty Baker's definitely not it. And you have a winning core already. Feelings aside from the franchise, they have good players. And I mean, George Springer's going to be a free agent. There's some holes that are going to need to be filled here. The Verlander thing is not good. I just don't really know what the outlook is going forward. Maybe you go with a younger guy there, so while you rebuild on the fly a little bit. I don't know.
I know we're going to talk about the playoffs here in a few minutes, but I think to me, you don't make that decision until you see how this season pans out.
Agreed.
Right. You can't fire the manager if you make it to the World Series, right?
I mean, you can.
You probably shouldn't, but stranger things have happened.
It's definitely happened before.
Even if he's just a good luck charm, they'll keep him around.
Yeah.
Just keep him in the back somewhere.
My lucky horseshoe I've nailed to the dugout.
Right next to the computer where they're watching all the tape, right?
Don't worry about that. Okay. Pay attention to the horseshoe.
Got it. Right. It's shiny. It's shiny.
Yeah.
But yes,
we call that a diversion.
Exactly. It's an interesting dynamic. The one thing that we saw earlier involving this was that exact kind of sentiment that they must have kind of known that they have someone involved with kind of a bigger and better fish and kind of know where they're going next. And that seems likely in this scenario. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see how it looks next week. But I would imagine they'll probably act pretty quick. But I would think they'd probably wait till the season's over with entirely, though.
That's where my head's at with it.
So we'll keep everybody posted on it. Okay, so what other notes did you guys have? Or did you guys have any other notes that you wanted to hit on?
There's just a lot of old baseball guys dying, which is really sad.
It is sad. Who was it that died today?
Joe Morgan.
Joe Morgan. Or that was like a day or two ago, something like that, right? Joe Morgan, and then there was wasn't there one more?
Yeah, we covered Bob Gibson. Yeah, since Bob Gibson, we've lost Whitey Ford and Joe Morgan.
They die in threes, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also like COVID year, right? A lot of undiagnosed deaths going on.
Did any of them die of COVID, though? I don't think so.
No, we don't know.
Oh, that's a good point.
Bob Gibson was cancer.
Okay, that's sad. It's all sad.
He'd fought it for a while.
Yeah. Whitey Ford wasn't he like 91? I didn't.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know that Whitey Ford was still alive. I'll be real honest with you guys.
Yeah, full disclosure, me either. I thought he died like 10 years ago.
I did too. I really did. When I heard he died, that was my response was, that guy's still alive? Damn. Oh, well, not anymore, but
Joe Morgan was on the Reds during the Big Red Machine, played with Johnny Bench, hit really well.
What do his stats look like? Do you have them in front of you?
Yeah, I've got his career slash in front of me. He hit 271, 392, 427.
Okay.
So not like.
Give me the years played.
Years played 63 to 84.
Yeah. Those.
He had 268 home runs, 1,100 RBIs, almost 700 steals, and 1,700 RBIs.
Those are good stats for that time, for sure. Those
Good
are
stats.
very consistent for a longer period there.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer.
10-time
10-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glove.
What year did he go into the Hall of Fame? Do you know?
I don't know that.
Gotcha. No worries.
Anyway, it's sad. Just like it's lots of loss going on this year for baseball.
I actually pulled up the stats on Whitey Ford. Y'all ready for some of these?
Ready.
All right, so there's going to be a notable time lapse here. So he started in the league 1950 and he played until 1967.
Mm-hmm.
As a pitcher, record of 236 and 106 with an ERA of 2 3/4.
2 3/4. Okay.
Yep. Strikeouts 1,956. Career WHIP of 1.215.
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty damn good. Ben, you want to talk time lapse?
Yeah, he did not play in 1951 or 1952.
Uh-oh.
Because
he was fighting the Korean War.
Because he was, I don't know if he was truly fighting, but he was at least in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. So
we only had the drop.
Yeah, it was suggested that he was after Yogi Berra died in 2015, the New York Times suggested that Whitey Ford was the greatest living Yankee.
Yeah, that's
which made A-Rod very mad to hear.
Yeah,
sure it did.
He was the maddest living Yankee.
Oh man, yeah. That's crazy though. Like those were within like a week of each other too, though.
Yeah.
This year is just the worst. It really is. What else have we got?
I mean, aside from that, I think it's playoffs, my friend. I can't think of much else.
I did notice that I had wrote a blog 2 years ago talking about how bad Angel Hernandez stinks. Confirmed still stinks. So just throw that out there real quick. This is an ongoing issue.
I have a question for you, Justin. I don't expect that there is an answer or a good answer that will take us a direction, but I have to know if there's any new Smash Mouth news that we need to discuss.
There's not. I have reached out to them a couple of times just to see if I could, stoke the fire a little bit, and I think they're ignoring me now, which is fine. I mean, I'm not like reaching out to troll them or anything. They started this whole mess.
So 2 things. Number 1, I love that you asked that question. Well, I guess 3 things. Number 2, I actually, this weekend, we're making pancakes with the kiddos, and I put on All-Star by Smash Mouth for them, and they're like, this is the song from Shrek. And I was like, I hope that's the only reason you know this song.
Yes.
And then number 3, did we talk about when they got into hot water for like playing a concert during COVID lockdown and like, or do we just talk about that amongst ourselves? Because there was at least some drama this summer involving them.
I think we did talk about it.
We did. Every day is a big news day, though, so it's kind of hard to like pinpoint if we discussed it in depth or moved on to the next horrible subject.
And it's also hard to keep track of how many times that Smash Mouth has beat people up for, less than a slice of bread. So it's, you just never can stop with these guys. They're just the absolute worst, but they don't really seem to be standing up for the Giants anymore.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, just when you think, we've gone a year without talking about them, the years start coming and they don't stop coming.
God, should have known that was coming. That's good though.
Perfect. Way to go. Sorry, I just needed to know.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you checked in. I wish I could pinpoint around what episode that happened, but it was very early on in the show when I got into it with those guys on Twitter, and that was just absolutely electric.
It was easily in the first dozen.
At least. It had to, but I was actually thinking 14 sounded right for some reason, but we can go back and check into it later. Well, it's one of those things I remember marking it at some point for, the audio of it and everything. So it's somewhere right around
our lawyers when we get taken to court.
Correct. Yeah, we had to disclose all that when we started a company. You know how that goes. Yeah, there's been, aside from playoffs, though, not as much like general movement on like other things happening with other teams. Like everybody's kind of staying pat till the season's done with, and I think you'll start to see what timelines are going to look for a season starting next year. I mean, I would imagine since they just did this successfully that they're just going to bulldoze on with it next year, starting at normal time, and so we'll know a little bit about that and free agency and all that, because there's a lot to talk about there too. There's a lot. The free agent pool is large this year, so there's going to be lots of free agent talk to talk about, even with the season ending. So lots to come. Unfortunately, in the offseason, we won't have a giant cheating scandal, or maybe we will. I don't know.
We can keep raking up the last one. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. I mean, we're not going to let it go next year. I know that. One other note I actually did have, and Ben, I'm glad that you had a chance to look at this today. Did you guys see what's going on with Billy Beane?
Yes.
Okay. So what? Ben doesn't seem like he did.
No, it just took me a minute. I had to catch up to what you were talking about. And I thought you meant Kansas City Royals pitcher Billy Brewer from the 90s with like a career ERA of 12. And I was like, why are we following him?
Okay. I love your confusion. Love where your head's at.
Yes. Billy Beane, the Moneyball A's guy. Yes. Now I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
So I think I mentioned this last episode, but the Red Sox are owned by a group called the Fenway Sports Group, and they essentially own the Red Sox, Liverpool FC, Roush Racing, some other like sports, kind of thing. So they are basically taking that company public. And it came out today that Billy Beane is going to be the executive that's going to kind of lead that charge. He's leaving baseball entirely, leaving the A's, which is a huge loss for the A's. But one of the most interesting moves I've seen ever, really. I'm shocked by this. They're only selling 25% of Fenway Sports Group, so I mean they're still going to have, the majority stake in it. But at the same time, like having someone lead kind of a giant conglomerate of sports is going to be a really interesting task for someone to take on. But I mean, I guess if you're running a baseball team and doing it the way he's done it successfully for a long time, you have the opportunity to really grow in a career, I guess. I mean, what do you guys think about this?
I have an initial thought. I guess I didn't recognize that he was going to manage the group of teams. I thought he was going to the Red Sox. So that's very different than what I thought. I would also say that baseball is incredibly different from soccer and from racing, specifically racing. That's not an easy sport to make money in. Mm-hmm. And it's just different. It's very, very different. It's not quite as much about the talent of the driver. It's more about everything around the driver. It's just very, very different. So I would sort of not question, but like, that's just going to be a learning curve for Billy Beane to figure out all that shit.
I would assume that he would just be the the head guy and everybody reports up to him. I can't imagine that he's making any kind of decision on that, right? I mean, other than maybe trying to understand the business. And
yeah, that was what I was wondering, if it's like a financials, business management, numbers type play where there's definitely your hand in the pot, but you're not like saying what kind of tires to throw on this car.
Yeah.
We might have to get Mountain Carl on so he and I can talk about racing with Billy Bean.
That'd be great. That'd be a great podcast idea. Just call it Racing with Billy Bean. That'd be incredible. Hopefully the goal would be to get him to do it one day. No, but no, it's an interesting structure. I was really surprised about the change, and it's been really kind of underreported. I just so happened to catch it in the Wall Street Journal this afternoon and was really surprised by that. And because I know that he owns like a very small stake in the A's himself because he's been there for so long, and he's kind of earned that, I would say, overall. And I'd imagine that they did that as some sort of a compensation package for him. But this is divesting all of that and really taking a step in the next direction. I will tell you, I'm very weary. I know that it's only a 25% stake in a bigger company, but I'm weary about my baseball team having to actually report to shareholders when I think about signing big contracts and things like that, and thinking, well, maybe we don't do that David Price pitching signing because maybe that's not the best thing for the bottom line. That kind of scares me, to be real honest with you. But the 25% thing makes me feel a lot better of a bigger thing. I mean, it's
So do we know if Billy Bean is getting ownership portion of the group, or they're just bringing him in?
I haven't seen that. I don't think it's been disclosed. I don't know that it will be, because well, I guess it would have to be at some point.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is if I'm part owner of the A's, why would I give that up unless it's to become part owner of something else?
Right. And that's probably the logic there, I would imagine. So there's got to be some sort of equity compensation stake there.
What does this mean for the A's, though? I mean, from my standpoint, I guess maybe I'm just sucked into the majesty of Moneyball story, and I think almost all of the A's success is because of Billy Bean. I'm sure we can attribute some proportion of their success to Billy Bean. Like, that's not good. It's a good team. They've been good for quite a while, and they're losing the guy behind that, in my mind. That's not good.
Not good. No, that's definitely not a good thing. But so refresh my memory. He's always been there, right? In the story of Moneyball, he never actually left. I know that the Red Sox courted him, but he never actually left even after that, right?
Correct.
I don't think
I
so.
don't believe so.
Not that I remember. And so I don't know if it's a situation where he's kind of like created a staff and, that are going to kind of take those reins going forward. But I absolutely agree with you. I would also kind of make the argument that it's never actually really worked. It's gotten like it's produced good baseball teams, but not great baseball teams. And I don't
not great playoff baseball teams. They always fold, just like they did this year.
Just like the other day.
They didn't win one. I thought they got one ring with him. Am I wrong about that? I could be wrong.
I don't recall, but it's no more than one of them. I know that. And the interesting thing about it is it's largely been with underrated players and, scouting properly and all that stuff, because it hasn't really been, it's not like he's used the Moneyball concept entirely like he did originally, where they just said, okay, well, we have this guy that gets on base this much and this guy that gets, on base this much, and we're just trying to produce runs and we're just trying to produce scoring, and the less we can spend and maximize the amount of actual production we get, the better off we are, which is great logic, except it doesn't really actually work because there's still the human element of it, and there's streakiness and there's all that stuff that you have to deal with in those kinds of situations. And so he's actually morphed that into more of a using that as a mark to evaluate talent going forward. And they've identified a lot of really good lightning in a bottle type players that have even gone on to do really, really good things. I just don't know how successful it's been for them.
Well,
I do worry about the success of them going forward, even so.
Well, I think with them, so I did pull up the last time they won, and we can talk about it here in a minute. But I do think that the true mark of Billy Bean is what he did with bringing that line of thinking to baseball overall. Because even if it didn't pan out for Oakland, that idea, has really panned out. And now, not only is so much of baseball permeated with it, but other sports are starting to try to use that same type of, the analytics type thing, how can we import this to football or what's it look like in basketball, and all that sort of stuff. So definitely game changing some stuff in sports.
But it's also funny to mark too, though, that it's not like they were his ideas. They were Bill James's ideas. He just was able to communicate them and put them to paper. So it's always kind of an interesting thing that kind of gets overlooked there.
Yeah,
well, it's like a Steve Jobs Wozniak type thing, like who's really behind it? Sure.
Right. Who brought it to market? I don't care who fucking came up with it. Who did it right?
For sure. And Bill James has shown himself to be a true piece of shit. If you guys haven't looked into that before, I
have not.
Oh, that is
like a high level executive summary of.
No, I can't.
Man.
No, I
so can't. Before we move on, the last time that Oakland won a World Series was 1989.
Someone called not working.
Their manager, Tony La Russa.
I think I drafted him last year in our World Series 1986 player draft.
That's fantastic. And then the other, oh my God, I forgot about that. And then the other callback from that episode, from that game, the radio announcer, Johnny Bench, who we were just speaking about earlier. Johnny Bench was calling the game on CBS with Jack Buck.
Just closing that loop. Love
Full
it.
circle, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Outfielder Podcast.
It's what we do best, isn't it? It is what we do best. All right. Do we want to look at playoff results and predictions going forward?
I have them in front of me.
I know you do.
Before we do, this is playoff related. So today that we're recording this, it's October the 12th?
Correct.
So if we record next Monday, which is the 19th, even if both championship games go to 7, we will know who's in the World Series at this time next week.
We sure will.
Which is so exciting.
We have a lot of plans. So
before we jump into the predictions and the results, I brought this up, I think sometime last week, and I think it's worth bringing up on the air. And that point is that through the postseason thus far, because everything is happening at the same stadium, there have been 0 rest days. There's no travel days. There's no extra days for pitching rotations to get an extra day of rest. So in a 5-game set, you can't pitch your best guy twice.
Love that.
And that's a big deal, I think, for some of these teams that don't have depth. So pretty much everybody but LA is probably feeling that quite a bit. That's very unusual for that to be the case in baseball. So I just wanted to say that out into the air.
Good. Now, this week we had the correct amount of games, as far as the right sides.
Allegedly.
Yes. Nothing changed.
Nothing changed.
Okay, good. Just checking. Just checking. Because Ivan wasn't there to remind us, and that's what we really came down to on that.
For sure. So let's start in the AL. Does somebody want to rattle these off, or should I just run with this?
Ben, why don't you talk about the results first, and then we'll go through the predictions.
Absolutely. So in the American League Divisional Series, Tampa overtook New York Yankees 3-2.
So Justin had Tampa Bay in 4. So you get a yellow mark for choosing the correct team. Ben, you had the Yankees in 5, and I had Tampa Bay in 4.
So what color mark do I get?
You get a red for being extremely wrong.
And thank you, Ivan, for throwing it up out there. Oh, look, we have some really good stuff. People coming in. Don't forget to comment if you're able to. We have Dan and Patrick and Ivan. We'd love to hear from you. So
yeah, exactly. Do it.
Okay, so Tampa moved on. J-Mac and Sam were correct.
Okay, so we have what? I guess we should have established some sort of scorekeeping system, but here we are.
I've got the scorekeeping. You guys don't open the fucking spreadsheet.
Well, that's fine.
I
gave you my predictions. Why do I need to open the spreadsheet for?
I spend too much of my day in spreadsheets.
Same here. That's why it's so easy to do.
Yeah, well, that's all right. Anyway.
There's scorekeeping. I'm winning. Don't worry.
This series was kind of boring, honestly. Garrett Cole went out and pitched an absolute gem for the Yankees, and it still didn't matter. And it just came down to injury for them, is really what it was.
They've been unhealthy all season. Tough luck.
Yeah, the Yankees went out with a whimper.
But, I mean, Sam, do you believe, top to bottom, that the Rays are a better team?
I do. Even when both teams are healthy, I think the Rays are better.
I think so too. Not by a lot, though.
By a lot. That's very, very debate worthy, I think, that take.
They're just crafted in such different ways that it's almost hard to tell. Like Tampa Bay is so much of a defensive team, and you've got the Yankees who just want to hit out of the park, and that's how they're designed. So like that makes sense, but it makes them really hard to compare. I think the better team definitely came out here in the grand scheme of how the season went. But again, it's a 60-game set, so it's kind of hard to understand the sample size there.
Yeah, and I think the stat was that Tampa had the best record in the American League. So especially since they're playing against a division rival, it makes perfect sense.
Does. Okay. What do we got next, Ben?
Next up in the American League Divisional Series, we had Houston overtaking Oakland 3-1. So Houston in 4.
Okay.
Muted Sam.
Justin had Oakland in 5.
Tough.
I also had Oakland in 5.
Tough.
Ben had Houston in 4.
Wow.
Which is perfectly correct.
What color mark is that, Sam?
That's a green. You get a green.
Good work, Ben.
Even a broken clock.
This is a situation where the Astros got hot at the right time, right? It's hard to take credit away from them, but they definitely heated up.
Yeah, they had, I think they scored a shitload of runs. Like they had a very hot offense. And the A's just kind of like petered out.
Well, I also think it just has to do with how the two clubs are built and structured. I think, not to use old school baseball terms, but Oakland is designed to stretch out the wins and to get the close games, to beat you in a game of inches. And so if Houston just comes out and starts mashing the ball, Oakland's not going to compete with that.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And that's something that they didn't see from them all year long either. Like you had like their division rivals, you had, even in this shorter season where things were varied up. And so they saw each other a lot, and they still didn't really expect to see the offense that Houston was putting out there, because Houston didn't put that offense out there all year. They were below 500, weren't they?
Not by the end, but I mean, it wasn't good.
Right.
Yeah. And so like they didn't really come into their own. And that's what so much of this is about always, is just getting hot at the right time. And I mean, this series against Tampa Bay with Houston is interesting. We'll kind of preview it here in a minute, but I mean, it's a good series. It really is. It's a good matchup coming out of this thing. I don't really know how it's going to end, but it'll be interesting to watch.
The American League is the right levels of competitive.
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. Sam, did you have any other notes on this one?
Nope. Sad that Oakland lost. I was really looking forward to seeing them in the ALCS, but that didn't pan out.
It really felt like they were going to come alive in game 2 as well, and they just never really did.
They had a lot of opportunities and they blew it.
Every time they it's like every time that they would get them loaded up, I'm sure they left. From what I remember, they left a ton of people on base. Like it was just a lot of squandered opportunities, unfortunately.
Which, overall, not necessarily Tampa, Houston, Oakland talk, but like I'm a sucker for afternoon playoff baseball. Like it is so cool to have games happening in the afternoon. Like I get where they're only doing it out of necessity, but it's absolutely wonderful. It's 4:00 and I can turn on and see playoff freaking baseball.
Yeah, and Sam hit on this a bit ago, but it's so interesting the little amount of rest that they really need whenever you take the travel aspect out of it. And it just feels like there's got to be some way that they can incorporate that going forward to try to reduce some of this travel just in general on athletes. Like if you're not trying to rethink how that goes, like it's very complicated as far as the logistics of flying these teams around and playing each other and, doing all of that. But I mean, if you can condense some of this stuff, it's got to be better for health. And I would think that the better product in general comes out here. And I think that's what you're kind of looking at in this AL side of things for sure.
Yeah, well said.
Okay.
Y'all ready to go NL?
Let's go NL.
So we had the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the San Diego Padres. The Dodgers won in 3.
Oof. Tough break.
we knew that San Diego didn't have the pitching to withstand them.
Yeah. They lost Clevenger.
I feel like I made a foolish pick. I'm kind of nervous to see what Sam says, how we ended up on this one.
So Justin had Dodgers in 5.
Okay.
Ben had San Diego in 5. And I had the Dodgers in 4.
We expected them to put up some kind of fight. They put up no fight.
Yeah.
0.
It was sad. Sad to watch. Everybody was really hot on this San Diego team. And I get why, but it was not built for playoff success.
I think the Dodgers are just so freaking intimidating. Like they've been kept out of, hoisting the trophy at the end of the year for so long. I think they're just murderer's row right now.
Well, and their pitching is so good right now. No one on the mound is even close to like mediocre. They're all really good. Kershaw's doing really well, like old Kershaw good. Walker Buehler's been crushing it in the postseason. Jansen's good. May is good. Like, you don't want to be a hitter up against the Dodgers.
Who would have thought that Clayton Kershaw would benefit from a shorter season and a little bit more rest, for actual quality baseball in October? Who would have thought?
You need to tweet that out. That feels like a good.
I've been saying that for fucking years. Like, this game is full of too many games. It's ridiculous. That guy, guys like him are absolutely wasted by not being able to stay healthy for that long. And it's just it's not even with him health though. It's that he pewters out of gas right at the end of the season every time because it's fucking exhausting. And he's an elite pitcher. And I know, you can make the argument that Nolan Ryan played for 100 years and all that stuff, but still it's, I don't know, that type doesn't really exist anymore. Not with the way baseball's played now.
Yeah, it's just engineered so different. If you look back at football games from the 1950s and 60s, everyone is built like just a linebacker. Your wide receivers built like linebackers. Your offensive linemen built like linebackers. That's kind of where a baseball player just looked a certain way back 50s, 60s, and 70s.
It's very true. Ben, do you feel bad about your San Diego pick?
Hashtag no regrets. I feel that we can't all get it right. Okay. I'm here for the people.
I know you are.
I'm not here for you two.
What we love
socialist.
That's what we love about it. Ben's going to communist summer camp instead of baseball camp this year. All right. What are we going to
both? That's why my favorite NL team is the Reds. Hey, no, I'm kidding. Y'all ready to move on?
That was an incredible joke. Oh, that was incredible.
That's why they had to change their name in the 50s. Do y'all know that?
No.
That's what during the McCarthyism and the Red Scare, the Cincinnati Reds became the Cincinnati Redlegs. They changed their goddamn name.
Good Lord.
I missed that.
Because of communism.
Let's let it come across my desk. Then I'm going to need you to do a bigger deep dive into that next episode, please.
You got it. Absolutely. Right. Well, we'll be talking about the World Series, but we'll evergreen that.
Okay, sounds good.
So in the NLDS second series, we had Miami and Atlanta. Sorry, Florida fans. Atlanta on top in 3 games.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, we'll get into it. So Justin had Atlanta in 5. Ben had Atlanta in 4. I also had Atlanta in 4.
So we all get yellow marks?
We all get yellow marks.
I do not think that I would have taken any part of Miami in any of these games had I not listened to you a little bit. But I will own my decision having listened to you. But I don't think that I would have done that any other time. I know myself pretty damn well at this point. I think that I would have stayed away from Miami in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, well, you still picked the right team. I mean,
yeah, no, for sure. But I think that I would have called a sweep in that case. Again, I'm not going to take that victory lap by any means, but because they were looking hot, but they just it was actually funny. Talking through it last episode convinced me more that I was right about that, just because I knew that they just don't have any stars yet. They're a young team and they've got a lot to come up. A lot coming up, I should say, and they've got a lot to build on. They're just not quite there yet.
So I think it's worth... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's worth noting right now that the Dodgers and the Braves are playing. That game just started in the first inning right now. But this is the first time in I don't know how long that both teams in the NLCS are undefeated in the playoffs this year. Atlanta had not lost and Los Angeles had not lost. And so one of those teams will get their first postseason loss of 2020 tonight.
That's awesome.
Also worth mentioning that Miami lost its first postseason series in history to the Atlanta Braves last week.
That's an incredible stat, though.
I know. Good for them.
It's pretty awesome.
It also makes me wonder, like, how often have Miami and Tampa, because they're both expansion teams from like the same year, basically. Like, how often have they been in the playoffs together? You know,
it's a good question.
Because when Miami was good in the early aughts or whatever, Tampa was helpless, right?
For a while, yeah, and then they got really good around 2011,
9.
No, it was a little later than that, but not by much. It was whenever the Goldman Sachs guys bought them and started to actually apply, good principles to running a baseball team. It's amazing how that makes a difference. Yeah, this series for Atlanta, they finally snapped into shape a little bit. The offense really got going, and they're offensively in this series, they looked incredible. They're going
to have to rely on their offense to carry them all the way. Their pitching is not that good.
Not that good. Mark Melancon cannot go more than like 2 innings. And I don't know of any situation where you should really have that now.
For those keeping score, Ben was the only person in the divisional series to pick the correct winner in the correct number of games.
Okay.
But he also got 2 teams totally wrong. So.
Maybe stop that a little early.
You know what? It is feast or famine over here for Ben Baseball when we're picking games in a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that really matters. So you've got the Braves and the Dodgers here. Let's just start with predictions on this side of it since we're already here. Where do you guys see this series going? How many games do we have? Let's start that. Let's make sure we have that right first.
There will be 7 games.
Confirmed in triplicate?
I'm about to confirm it in triplicate, but I'm 90. Oh, yeah, it will be 7 because game 7 will be Sunday night if it goes to it.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
I'm going to go. Should I start? I'll start.
Yeah, start.
I'm going to go Dodgers in 5. Almost a sweep. Dodgers in 5.
I'm going to say Dodgers in. Boy, 5 was my number. I feel like I want to go.
Okay, man. There's only so many numbers to pick.
Oh, shut up. Shut up with your patronizing shit. I'm going to take the Dodgers, but I'm going to take them in 6 games, I think. I think Atlanta may be able to put up a little bit of a fight here.
There's a shootout. They'll win it.
Yeah, but I don't think that I think for what we've already talked about as far as pitching and all that goes, I don't trust the Atlanta situation nearly as much here.
Yeah.
All right, Ben.
Los Angeles in 5.
Los Angeles in 5.
So
yeah. Atlanta steals 1, but the Dodgers, like I said, they're just too stacked.
Can we just I just want to look at what Atlanta has done. They beat the Reds, the 7 seed, in 2 games. Then they beat Miami, the 6 seed, in 3 games. They're a little bit of a fraud, right?
They're very fraudulent.
They played no real teams.
Uh-oh.
The only thing that makes me feel that they're less fraudulent, so counterpoint would be that they've been in the postseason like 3 of the last 4 years with medium success. So they at least have some core.
I smell a fox in the hen house the more that you say this, Sam, and I think you might be correct. I'm going to change my guess. I'm going to go 4 games.
I mean, if they had played, I'm just going to go down the list of the teams. If they had played, I think they would have maybe done worse. I think they would have done worse against the Brewers.
The Brewers were really hurt, though.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, fine. I take that back. Padres, Cardinals, Cubs. I think they would have gotten. There would have been more resistance against those teams.
Do you think they would have lost to those teams?
I think they might have lost to some of those teams.
I feel like you're on a limb here, man.
Yeah, all right.
I don't.
Well, that's how you pick the Marlins to win, I guess, right?
To be fair, I don't think I picked the Marlins, did I?
I did, and they won the wild card.
How'd they do in the divisional?
They lost, and I chose them to lose.
History was on your side in that case, so I'll give you that. Yeah, I don't like that path at all. And that's an avenue I've not considered that I typically would. I'm gonna stick though. I think
Okay.
I'm gonna stick just for the fun of it. But
Good.
I would not be surprised if there was a sweep type situation happening there.
Sticking with Dodgers in 6 then?
Yeah, I think so.
Locking it in.
Lock it in.
Command S.
That's right. Any other notes on that series?
Freddie Freeman hit a home run in the first, so the Braves are up 1-0.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Got to get out. Who's pitching for the Dodgers tonight? Walker Buehler, maybe?
Walker Buehler.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty good.
Really fucking good. He's having an incredible season. Another one of those guys that maybe just needs a little bit more rest. But, who's counting? All right, the other side. We have Tampa Bay versus Houston. Ben, do you want to start us off this time?
Yeah, we do need to give a disclosure here that 2 games have already been played.
Yes.
And Tampa is up 2-0.
Okay.
So I'm going to take Tampa in 5. I wish I could go halves, like 5.5. Like I'm somewhere between 5 and 6.
Vegas sets it that way on purpose. So you have to go one or the other.
Yeah, I'm going to go 5.
I'm actually probably going to say the same thing. 6 wouldn't surprise me, though, but I'm going to say 5. I think the Rays are definitely a better team in this scenario.
Yes, I am also Tampa Bay at 5. They've got the pitching depth. The Astros do not. They've already pitched their 2 best guys, and they lost both games with no rest.
Also, I'd like to point out, were either of you aware that Tampa Bay has a Mike Trout lookalike?
On their team?
Yep.
Or is it a problem?
No, I mean, I didn't present it as one, but I guess maybe it could be. I don't know.
Yeah, his name is Mark Perch.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Yeah, no, I'll post it out later so everybody can see. I don't want to bury the lead too much on it. So
Jimmy Bass now batting.
There you go. Yeah, I think so. We're all in agreement here on this, then, right?
On that one, yeah.
Wow, that's absolutely not going to happen then. If we're all in agreement on this, we're all not with this. So
I will be so unfathomably angry if Houston makes it to the World Series.
If Houston makes it to the World Series, this podcast is going to get weird for a couple weeks, I think.
We already toe the line with weird every once in a while because y'all have me on here, but it's gonna get rowdy. It's gonna get weird.
We're gonna cash in all the chips in this case, and we're gonna make it happen. So don't even if we make it, even if we get to that point where you're looking, I mean, it's gonna be the Dodgers on the other side. So you're gonna look at the Dodgers versus either Houston or Tampa Bay. If it gets to a situation where it's the Astros, it's gonna be uncomfortable. That's all I can tell you. But it's can't miss radio. That's all I can say.
Y'all have to come strategies.
Been thinking about it already.
Y'all are going to have to come bail me out of the Arlington City jail for banging on trash cans outside Globe Life Field.
We have not considered that, but I think that's something that we will have to look into if they're here. Definitely, yes. Definitely a possibility. Okay, what other notes do we have on predictions? Anything? Do we want to look at? I guess we'll talk about MVPs and stuff like that when we get to the actual World Series, because that's definitely worth talking about there. So, any other notes you guys have on playoff stuff?
I mean, I kind of headlined it a little bit earlier, but I absolutely love that we're in deep playoff baseball now. Like, that just makes me so happy. I wish the Rangers were here. They never will be, but I'm so happy that it's deep playoff run time.
It at least feels like normal baseball season with all this happening right now. Like the normal season, like the regular season didn't feel that way because you knew it was only 60 games, but this is all pretty much the same way it usually goes.
Yeah, I like watching the games during work. It's like on over here, and there's something going on at 4, and it's great. I love it.
I do miss the fans though, and it makes a bigger difference than I thought it would. And it's down to even little things like whenever you go to a commercial break and it, shows like the bar next door or whatever, and it's all the fans, waving. You know how they'll do all those kinds of shots and things like that, outside and whatnot, which, by the way, there was so much blowback because Atlanta, the Braves, whenever they were playing at home, wouldn't allow fans in the stadium, but all the people were gathered out on that outside portico, and people were super pissed off about that at the Braves for some reason. Like, they can't really control that, so that's, very, very
shut it down. They didn't.
Yeah, they probably should have. I mean,
trying to think of who's in charge of that.
Right, that is the problem. Who is in charge of that? I mean, it's outside the ballpark.
Whose portico is this?
Sam, you know how they have that giant Atlanta Brave? You know what I'm talking about? That's where
there's an AstroTurf situation, probably half the size of a football field. There's TV screens out there. There's bars and restaurants surrounding it, it's right near the main gate. So the gates are locked, but they're just outside there watching. They could have turned the TV off. Honestly, that would have done it.
That would have definitely done it.
That's what I do to the kids. All right, y'all, we're done.
Just did the 7th with the bases loaded.
All right, go take a bath.
Yeah, go home, people. That was definitely something that we didn't anticipate on seeing. But I haven't heard it's definitely been different without the crowds, though, and just some of those little meaningless things that all kind of add up to, even if you're not there, the experience of the game. It's definitely different.
Yeah, we've just taken a lot for granted our whole lives, I think.
Definitely true. The fake crowd noise is pretty bad too, though.
Are y'all ready to have Joe Buck back in the broadcasting booth?
Yes.
Because the Cardinals are out, I am in.
Yes. Joe Buck has won my heart over in years since my hatred for Joe Buck. So I'm good with that. I don't really actually like Joe Buck for football as much as I used to now that I actually like him doing baseball. So, all right. Any other notes, fellas?
Just another Joe Buck note that he's a tall guy, but when Fox puts him in the booth next to Troy, he looks so short, and I love it.
So small. So small. All right, Ben, take us out of here.
Well, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to check us out. We are at sensiblyloud.com. It's a website. They have the internet on computers. It's amazing. You can even do it on your phone. The internet is everywhere. Read our blogs. Listen to our podcasts. We make good points sometimes. Big thanks to J-Mac for producing this and every other episode. Y'all put your masks on so we can have nice things again. I really would like that. There are things that I miss in my life, and I blame humans for us not being able to have them. Thank y'all so much.
We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in for episode 128 of the Outfielder podcast. We'd like to thank all of our fans, Sensibly Loud Media, our sponsors, and those with the sharp eye to keep the runners close. Grounds crew, please keep patrolling that outfield. Big ups to Kevin Towers. Don't text and drive. We'll see you right back here next time on the Outfielder podcast.